That was great. We just spliced that onto the other. Sorry to do this, but I wanted to say some stuff about Tommy Pederson, actually. Pederson, technically. Tommy was an absolutely astounding trombone player. If you remember, I don't know, the Spike Jones band, which was actually a musical, well, not in the Broadway sense, but it was a musical comedy. It was like the comedy was built into what the musicians provided and stuff. But the members of that band were all incredible, like virtuosos on their instruments. They had to be. They were doing like incredibly crazy stuff. And Tommy was sort of a kind of trombone that actually sort of almost doesn't exist anymore today. It's like what he was a studied, incredible technician, incredible stylist, but he wasn't actually like an improviser. He didn't play jazz, but he played on small, what is now considered jazz equipment or small commercial equipment. But it was sort of coming out of the Arthur Pryor mold, and not to where the sounds are sort of like separated a little bit now. Like orchestral has gotten to like much larger equipment. The jazz stuff has gone to small equipment. That part was always there, but what wasn't there is like now if you're playing small equipment, it's sort of incumbent on you to be an improviser of some sort or another. And there was this whole group of trombone players that were just incredible. They could read anything you put in front of them. They did most of like the studio work in LA and in New York. This was back in the 50s and 60s. And it's really interesting that that sort of disappeared a little bit. I'm not sure why, but that has happened. But in addition, he was obviously, we were playing a piece of his music. He was quite an incredible composer too. Writing stuff for etudes for solo advanced and intermediate etudes for trombone, bass trombone, and duets, trios, all this kind of stuff. But one little story. I called him up when I was getting into a Woody Herman story. One of the Woody Herman story. This isn't really Woody Herman, but it's because of Woody Herman. I was traveling with the Woody Herman band back in, I guess, it was like the early 70s, like 72 through 76. That's 1900, not 1800. And I don't know exactly how it came to be. I think I may have called Tommy up, found him and called him up, and that's because there was this guy, Hoyt Bohannon, out in Los Angeles, another trombone player like that. He wasn't a jazz player, but could play anything on the page. Actually, those of you who listen to like Tom and Jerry cartoons, and actually I have a couple of little kids who've been watching all these Disney cartoons from like the 40s, actually early 50s and stuff, and the trombone playing on those is absolutely astounding. I mean, it's all knocked out by that guy. But anyway, so I called Tommy up, and Hoyt Bohannon had this group they called Hoyt's Garage, because he had like a discrete, separate garage from his house, and it was large enough, and like minimum eight trombone players in LA would get together around camp. And actually, I think they probably got together weekly just to play through pieces. Some stuff that Tommy wrote, some stuff that other people would write and bring in, or sort of standard trombone ensemble literature and stuff. Just to play, just to sort of get their mind out of the day-to-day work that they were doing. So anyway, I called Tommy up, and I couldn't they weren't doing like the whole big group, but he said, well, come on over, Hoyt will come over. We went to Hoyt's house. It was Hoyt and Tommy were there. And I went over with the bass trombone player. It was on Woody Herman's band, a guy named Art Linsner, who's now a very busy player in Chicago. And he and I went over, and we were set up like in a box. And what happened is every tune, the three tenors would rotate. So there was a point where Hoyt and Tommy were on one side, and Art and I were on one side together. And the thing is, there was a real style in LA. If you listen to like particularly 1960s film score and stuff, it's like you can hear the trombones, and it was really style. It wasn't happening in New York, because New York was much more stated. But in LA, it was like the style of as soon as the note was about longer than an eighth note, it was a very fast, very narrow vibrato would happen on the note, and it was just very stylistically, geographically, the way the way they did stuff out there. And talked to Tommy about it, he said it came, his ideas that he felt it came from like string playing, where it's like you excite the note immediately as soon as you have a little bit of chance. They did the same thing on trombone. Out in New York, it was a little different. They would wait a little bit longer before vibrato. Vibrato was usually a little bit slower and a little bit wider. But it was funny because what happened is when it got to the point that it's like Hoyt and Tommy were on one side and Art and I were on the other side, it looked like when they'd get to a note, it looked like their slides were like had like a broomstick between. Because all of a sudden they'd be there, all of a sudden both sides would be going like, and it was like, I remember having a hard time like keeping from like sort of laughing at it all, not in a bad way, but it was just such a weird sight. Anyway, that's that story. Now you get to hear the 4-bar intro again.